Hi everyone, my name is Allie Carlson and I'm going to be doing debate 5, side A. I'm going to defend why, despite some setbacks, the United Nations continues to be an effective world tool to combat political violence and protect human rights across the world. So before I jump into the reasons why I'm picking this side, I just want to give a little background about human rights, specifically with the UN. So in 1948, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was signed and human rights were brought into the realm of international law. And an office in the UN was created called the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. They're the lead responsibility for the promotion and protection of human rights. They lead peacekeeping missions, comment on human rights situations around the world, and can investigate these issues and report on them so people aren't conducting violations of human rights and that they are being held accountable for these. The Human Rights Council was also established in 2006, which is another entity that is responsible for protecting human rights around the world. So what are these human rights that we are protecting? So human rights are inherent to all human beings regardless of race, sex, nationality, ethnicity, religion, and any other status. They include the right to life and liberty, the freedom from slavery and torture, and the freedom of opinion expression, and the right to work and educate. So after saying those, you can see news stories where these human rights are being violated currently in the world. Not everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. There are countries that don't have free speech where people have to be careful what they're going to say because they could get killed or they could be punished for their opinions. Also, some women around the world can't work or go to school because just of the way the country is. So there are definite movements that we need to push forward to be able to have everyone in the world have these inherent human rights. So the UN, it was originally made up of 5 countries, and they kind of added a +1. These are the main components of the UN, is the US, China, France, Russia, UK, and then the +1 is Germany. So the UN is able to help these smaller countries that do not have a global say like larger countries might have. The UN represents the rights of all people, and they believe that everyone should have all these equal rights. And there are many people around the world who depend on the UN for help in not just in the political violence realm, but also in the healthcare sector and different aspects of their life. So despite the setbacks that have occurred to the UN, I do believe that the good that they are doing is helping people around the world, and they will continue to be a helpful source to those people who don't have a say or don't have a voice, and that they can come in and help them. So some of the achievements that the UN has done is that they have created a comprehensive body of human rights laws that can be used to determine whether human rights have been violated. They've also helped with many mediations across the world, specifically in Sudan, Nepal, Sierra Leone, Liberia. These are just some current ones. And also there's been a 40% decline in conflict around the world, which could be a result of the UN peacekeeping missions because they are bringing people to the table to talk about the issues before the conflict can begin or before the conflict can escalate too high. So by insinuating peacekeeping, this removes some conflict, which we talked about. We talked about peacekeeping a lot within our course right here, and this really does bring down the amount of conflict. So by some statistics from 2014 is that the UN had been a part of 172 peace settlements to date and over 300 international treaties. They've been involved in almost every major war and international crisis, and they've helped over 30 million refugees who are fleeing war, persecution, or famine. So the UN has helped at least 30 million people, and these 30 million people might not have gotten this aid if the UN wasn't established. Some other accomplishments is relating to sexual violence that occurs during war. The UN has helped criminalize wartime rape and other sexual violence acts, and they've helped develop programs for the victims of these after the conflict ensures. So the second part of this course, we focused a lot on what happens after conflict. How do you go back to your normal life? How do you continue to live after these things have happened to you? And the UN has been very instrumental in helping people kind of rehabilitate and go back into society and kind of deal with what has happened with them. They have also helped set up the political systems in these countries after conflict, training judges and police officers to deal with the abuses that are occurring so people can get the help they need. This is another part of the healing process, is that people know that the people who committed these crimes are being held accountable and that what happened to them was real and that they can begin to accept it and move forward in the healing process. Another thing that the UN does is it helps promote democracy across the world. It has been a key proponent in over 100 countries' elections. They want to promote fair and free elections and let the people's voice be heard. They also help bring independence to more than 80 countries so that people are able to say what they believe and have a say in their government, and it's not a dictatorship. In another realm, not completely related to political violence, but the UN also has quite a few other aspects to it, such as health, which relates to people being able to live the right to life. They have reproductive and maternal health, HIV, they eradicated smallpox, they reduced child mortality and gave universal immunizations. So all these things contribute to people living longer and their right to life. They also are very big in the humanitarian world with refugee crisis, disaster victims, giving food to people who don't have the resources necessary. So again, these are all right to life things. In the international law realm, they're prosecuting war criminals, so people don't just so these things don't just occur and people move on with their lives. Like people are taking responsibility for what has happened. One big thing that I believe the UN does is it gives a voice to the small countries. I've mentioned this before, but I think this is a major thing because many of these small countries, third world countries where people are living in rural areas, they don't have the same say as, say, some people in the US because we're in a developed world and we have more stance on the large international grounds. These small countries depend on the UN for some resources and for the help that they need. And I'm not going to say that the UN is perfect. Obviously, not everything is perfect. There has been some setbacks, such as the ineffective stopping of the genocide against the Bosnian Muslims, the war in Darfur, and the ethnic cleansing of the indigenous population. And then there have been sexual abuse accusations against UN peacekeepers. So all of these things could have been better. The UN could have handled these things better, but due to all the ways that they have helped refugees and people around the world, I believe that the UN is doing enough to help people, and they're supporting the small countries that don't have a voice. No organization is perfect, and the UN has some obvious places for improvement, and they should continue to work on these. But if the UN were to not be an institution anymore, I believe more people would not get the help they needed because there wouldn't be this large, already set up branch that could help these people, and they have the resources to help all these refugees and all these people around the world. So I do believe that they should continue to operate despite these setbacks. However, they should address these setbacks more and find ways to improve. Thank you for listening to my debate.